two ninjas spoiling movies.
Yeah,
And Brandon Collins.
that's me.
It's just a brand for your movie needs. Medium popcorn.
Woo!
You haven't seen it, well, we're gonna spoil it.
Who's the master?
Well, that's your warning.
Uh.
And if you get pissed, it's all your fault. Ooh, ooh. Ooh, ooh.
1, 2, 3, 4, 4 o'clock. Rock. 5, 6,
5, 6,
7.
11. Yeah.
Because
Yeah,
we're virtuals, we're delayed.
Okay, fair enough.
It's all right. Hey, everybody, it's Eddie Collins,
Guys, this is just Brown.
and we're recording through Zoom. So unfortunately, you weren't able to get the amazing musical talents of Medium Popcorn, but it's okay. Maybe we'll try something later. But as always, we're going to be spoiling movies, and this movie is I.S.S. at the International Space Station, a film that's directed by Gabriella Copperthwaite and written by Nick Shafir, starring Ariana DeBose, Chris Messina, John Gallagher Jr. in his cautious white man role that may not always be what it seems. That seems to be his shtick, and a bunch of other Russian actors. Yeah, this movie is interesting. It's a tight 95 minutes. It's tight. It's tight, but I gotta, without going too deep into what my rating is going to be, Justin, I gotta admit, this has a really, really strong first two acts, despite some shoddy CGI. Really strong first two acts, and then it falls apart hard in the third act. Like I was like, I don't know if they ran out of money. I don't know if maybe there's a storyline that they were like, that's not quite working. Because the twist didn't quite make sense to me.
Yeah.
And so I was really frustrated by this movie because the first act, especially, the setup of like, the International Space Station, you got the Americans, the Russians, and everything. And like they're getting that dynamic. So there's two new American astronauts that are joining the team that's already up there. There's like 3 Russians and 1 American. And so now they're even. They're even teams and stuff. Chris Messina is like the lieutenant for the Americans. You got this one dude with the twitchy eye, Nikolai, played by Costa Ronan, who he's like in charge of the Russians. And then they have other people on their end. Pilu Asbach, he played Euron Greyjoy. And immediately, as soon as I saw him from Game of Thrones, I was like, I don't trust that nigga. Because Game of Thrones, I don't know if you watch Game of Thrones, but I was like, he's Theon's brother, and that guy was a piece of shit.
Fair.
Those Greyjoys were pieces of shit. And so I just immediately hated that guy. And it was weird because like Ariana DeBose and John Gallagher Jr., they're like, getting their footing. Well, not really, because they're in zero gravity and shit. But
hold on. So John Gallagher Jr.'s character, he basically was on leave because he has kids and he went back to Earth. So he's coming back up to the space station, and he's bringing Kira,
Kira.
Ariana DeBose, the character Kira, along with him. So it's Christian and Kira. They're coming to the space station. Kira for the first time. She's a scientist, but she's more of like a doctor, a medical doctor.
Yeah, and I wrote down John Gallagher gonna die because he mentions his kids. I was like, well, that's gonna be a problem.
When somebody's like, starts to talk all up your kids, it'd be like that means them kids gonna be not happy when they find out about what daddy.
Well, I mean, that's if they're still alive. That's what's wild.
Well, that too.
Which is why the plot twist didn't quite make sense unless he was meant to be a spy for a different country. Which Tati and I were like, did they cut something? Because it didn't make sense.
What do you mean?
So remember, like, and folks were maybe possibly going to be bouncing around when the attack actually happens, and they learn that Russia has attacked the United States, and they get
no, we don't know who attacked who.
Well, they get. No, because remember, Chris Messina gets the message that the Russians have initiated attacks on U.S. soil, and they're like, and they might be in coordination with other countries. And so Tati and I,
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Tati and I, given the plot twist in the third act, we thought, oh, maybe John Gallagher Jr. is working with another country. Like he's like, you know what I mean? Like he has other intentions and stuff.
I see. I didn't get that. I think the main thing is he was just like, yeah, he's just like, I'm gonna get home regardless. He's like, I'm making it out of here, and then he went all every man for himself. So once he felt that that in his head that Kira was trying to leave him and leave him alone on that ship, then he was just like, no, I need to get back to my family. So fuck all these people. I'm leaving,
Mm-hmm.
and they, and, you know, it is what it is.
Did
It's
he
like,
genuinely think that though?
we mean
Did he genuinely think that like Akira was going to try to leave him?
not
Or
Kira, just Kira.
Kira,
But
you know what I mean?
well, because she
Because I
said
didn't
that.
get that.
Well, because you remember when she was looking through the drawer and he's just like, "What are you doing?" She's just like, "Oh, node zero, da 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 da," and he's just like, "What are you talking about? There is no node zero." I think in his mind is like, "I caught this chicken a lie," and he knows that Veronica, when they were sitting there talking in their pod, Veronica came and said, "Hey, can I talk to you?" Because she's new and ever. So he's just like, "Oh, these bitches are plotting."
Maybe. I
So
mean, but he was lying though about the node zero because that does exist.
So that's the thing. He I don't think because when he was leaving, was he leaving with no, because there was nothing about really node zero. He just wanted to take the pod and get up out of there.
Yeah, but I think when Veronica, after she found out what happened with Chris Senna, and I know folks were bouncing around,
Yeah.
And she spoke to Kira separately, I think that's when he took the opportunity to move that suit into his sleeping quarters. I think he was already plotting before he even had clarification on what Kira was doing. So that's why I feel like there might have been a missing plot point where he actually was a traitor. Because if I get it. Maybe he's urgently trying to get back to Earth, right?
Yeah.
But one, the odds, they talk about the odds of like them actually being able to successfully land, given like the broken down technology and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's really rough already. Then two, they don't know the situation on Earth. They just see fucking half the Earth in flames, which I thought that shot was like incredibly like when Chris Senna is out on the spaceship trying to repair the satellite that the Russians tell him that needs to be repaired, and
Yeah.
he looks at the Earth engulfed in flames because of nuclear war.
Yeah.
Like I wrote down, I was like, "Yo, that's some good acting." I don't
Yeah.
know if this movie fully deserves it, but the horror on his face, and he was like, "Kira, do not let anyone by the window." I was like, "Yo, that's a good scene."
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Like, I was like, I don't know where
Because
this
like,
movie's
yeah,
fully going, but that's a good fucking scene.
it's like just and just and that's the thing. It's like you're looking from space and you
Mhm.
can just see red in one section of the world. Like
Yep.
that's wild.
Yeah, Tati kept freaking out when she saw that shit. She was like, "Oh my god."
Yeah.
She's like, because it's like not only is it like, obviously nuclear war, but it's also like that's never gonna recover.
Yeah.
Like that's done.
Mm-hmm.
So it's and you're watching from space, so you're just like, and because they couldn't quite figure out where it was, because the way that they're rotating, everything's just fucking crazy. Like no one knows which way is up.
Yeah.
And then they're both getting conflicting messages. Of course, the Russians are the ones that immediately act on it. Because I think Chris Senna was going to kind of like wait and see,
Yeah.
right? But
I think that he was just like, well, this whole thing is very a piece on just like, just humans, tribalism, just like where, just who we are in humanity, right?
yeah,
Because they are all friends. They've been
yeah, they're
living on
very
that,
friendly.
yeah, on that space station. They don't let the outside world affect them, or they try not to.
Yeah, Ronica and Gordon are like getting it down.
Oh yeah, and you know what? I get it. I know, Ron. Yeah, you get it. Ron,
Yeah, I
get
mean,
it.
I thought that and that's why I was like, I don't trust John Gordon, John Gallagher Jr. Because the way he just immediately bashed her in the head. I mean, she was going to engulf them in flames, the other Russians.
Well, so that's the thing. She sent them to go that way because she was just like, I'm gonna kill these niggas.
Well, yeah,
Because
I mean, they purposely put Chris Messina in a trap and then knocked him off the space station.
Yeah, they sent him out into space alone to die.
That was
It's
wild.
like a slow death, which is crazy. So she's out here to get revenge, and then little. Well, that's the thing is like what you call it, John Gallagher Jr., Christian, his character, they don't know that that's why she did what she did, right? So
Yeah.
that's why I don't think that he was like a double agent or anything, because also nothing played towards him being a double agent other than the fact is that at some point he put a space suit in his thing because he's like, I'm ready to go, I'm ready to
Well,
get up out of here.
I disagree though, because I think his betrayal, and this might have been just the actor, his
Mhm.
betrayal made him seem shadier than you're implying that his intention really was then. Because I can see a desperate dude being way out of his his comfort zone, trying to reconcile with the situation he's now put in. But from the jump, I mean, Chris Messina gets that very subtle message where it's like, hey, your U.S. was being attacked. Um, take control of the I.S.S. by any means necessary. And like, I think it said, don't alert anybody. Like, you know what I mean? It was, and they were like, oh, did you get a transmission? He's like, no. And then that button started going off, and he was like, fuck. And then you heard the Russians get it too. I was like, dude, this is awesome tension right here. But
Yeah,
then when
for
he
sure.
goes to work, when they split off, John Gallagher immediately says, oh, well, wouldn't it be possible that they get a message saying they got to take over the station?
Yeah.
And like, then that puts a target on us. So it's like he already peeps that the situation, what it could be. And so I'm like, what does he know? Because for me, I wouldn't immediately think that. But at the same time, that's what I'm saying. Like his characterization was a little weird because it was like, how much does he know? And how experienced is he? Because he seemed kind of freaked out about
But
the situation of having to fight, to defend the station stuff.
but you also got to put it like this. So I don't know how long it takes him to get up there, or how much of time to get off.
Mm,
He had just been on a leave. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? So he's home with his family, and then he gets launched back up there. How like let's say his leave was a month, right? 2 days later, he's in this conflict, right?
Mm,
So now you have a guy that just finished seeing his family, his children, right? And then he gets back up to the space station, and now all of a sudden, like almost immediately, within a day or two, shit's starting to pop off. He's just like, fuck, I don't know what's going on here. I don't know what went on when I wasn't here. All I know is I'm getting the fuck back home. Fuck everybody. This is about
mm,
me.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But then also, like right before shit went down at the very end of the film, he goes, you kind of look at it, is like, once we get home, we'll be considered like heroes, you know.
Oh yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like, I think you have somebody who saw everything that's happening, and also the fact is, once they're like, oh, I'm sorry, Gordon, they're like, Gordon, like, why none of them jumped up to go and fix this problem that's
Satellite. Yep.
out there, the satellite issue. They're sending you out there. It's like, don't you think that, yeah, like that they could have, they may have, they got the same message that we got. It's like, I think they're trying to kill you. Gordon's just like, I trust my people. So he was already wary. So he's just like, nah, these motherfuckers are gonna try to kill me. He has no bond with
Mm,
Kira because Kira just got there. If
yeah.
she wants to fuck around and find out, let her. But at this point, I'm
No,
getting the
we
fuck
we
up out
gotta
of here.
we gotta protect Ariana DeBose at all costs, man. She's a cutie. We can't let that happen.
Yes, but at the same time, this is a guy, he just met her.
You're right. You're right. I get it. But I real quick about Ariana DeBose, but Tati asked at the very beginning, she's like, how's she gonna keep her hair like that in space? That's fair. That's fair. Also they're all kind of fucked up because the first night apparently is like really rough because you're kind of sleeping upright and stuff. And
Yeah.
I I think your time balance is all off. Cause I wrote down, I was like, what time zone isn't in space? And Tati's like, that's not a thing in space, I don't think. It's like, why would you
Yeah.
need to? She's like, why would you need to worry about that? I was like, well, I guess if you're trying to call home and shit.
Hmm.
Um, I did love though that they were clearly. It was interesting because they were clearly like feeling each other out in regards to how much they could trust each other at the beginning. Because Ariana DeBose tries to pretend like she doesn't know that much Russian. Alexei from Game of Thrones, he tries to pretend like he doesn't know that much English. And then he's speaking. I wrote down, I was like, he's speaking English pretty damn good right now.
Yeah.
Even though he's trying to pretend like he doesn't understand certain words and stuff. So then when the third act, when it's revealed that they all understand Russian, I'm like, yeah. And then Tati was like, of course they do. She's like, that would be fucking insane for NASA to send them and they're not fluent in Russian.
Yeah.
Like that's such a disadvantage to our people to do that.
Yeah,
I was
it'd
like,
be
yeah.
ridiculous.
I was thinking that, but then I was also like, but we're also American. We're very arrogant and thinking like, hey, we don't need to learn any other languages. English, baby. It's the master language, baby.
English, motherfucker. Can you speak it?
I mean, when they were speaking in Russian though, and Chris was like, hey, can y'all speak in English? I was like, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because y'all like, yo, this is getting bad.
Yeah.
I was like, just because you fucking Veronica don't mean that she ain't gonna have that Russian loyalty. Because Nikolai, he got that message and his eyes started twitching. He stepped up real quick.
See, that was something that I love that acting choice, because that's a nervous, a nervous eye twitch that just started to come along after all of this shit shit started going crazy. Like that acting choice, I was just like, that's dope. It's little things like that, because it's a tell that he's lying. There's a tell that such and such and such is going on. Like that, I very much enjoyed. Like, like you said, like I'm glad that you pointed out the eye twitch, because I was just like, oh, this dude's like, that's a nice little little Easter egg.
Yeah, it was interesting. There's some interesting acting choices in this, and I thought, like I said, I really enjoyed the first two acts, because I think the first act ends very intensely with the whole like Earth being on fire, and even before that, when you like Ariana DeBose, she sees Earth from the space, the spaceship's perspective and stuff, and I was like, Earth looks like a fucking nightlight. That's wild.
Yeah.
And then like immediately things escalate because of the war. And then I wrote down, I'm like, are they even trained for something like this? Because they're saying take control of the ISS by any means necessary. It's like, I work at NASA. Like, did they train me to like have to kill somebody?
I
But
would
they probably
be
had to go through some kind of basic military training, right?
I don't know. I mean,
yeah, I was wondering that. I'm like,
but the thing is, like, they're more on the scientific side.
mhm.
You know what I'm saying? I think that Chris Messina's character, Gordon, I think that he's probably one of the more formidable ones.
Oh, yeah. He probably, at the very least, is the one that had to have some kind of weapons training or something like that, because he's the commander.
Even though he didn't necessarily do that great when him and Nikolai were going at.
Well, oh yeah, that's when it's like this is starting to fall apart during that fight scene. We'll get to that. But like even when the radio went out, like I would immediately be like, I need to go back. Something's not right.
Yeah, I wouldn't unclip my fucking thing.
Yeah. And he's like, did anyone activate the arm? I don't need the fucking arm. I'm like, bro, clearly you're in trouble.
Yeah.
Which was wild that I didn't even know you could replace they were like, we put a dummy wire in there after we cut the original one. I'm like, you can do that? You can just put like a random wire in there to make it seem like it's still functional? That's crazy.
Yeah.
Which I was like, which means they have protocols for this stuff.
What do you mean?
Like you don't just have a dummy wire around like just for shits and giggles. You know what I mean?
No, you just, but that's not that hard. It's just, they're just kind of, they're thinking ahead to absolve themselves of any wrongdoing. You know what I'm saying? So you put the dummy wire in there, and then, excuse me, you put the dummy wire in there. So then like, okay, so the Russians didn't do anything. Our comms being down isn't their fault. They didn't do anything. So you still think that they're like everything is copacetic, and it's a 3-on-2 right now. One person is technically brand new to the fold, so she doesn't necessarily know what's going on. So she's easier to manipulate, and the other guy, you know what I'm saying? So basically, it's 3-on-1 or two men to one man.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Because like because the two Russian guys, they already factored out Veronica with this whole thing, because they knew that she was too close to Gordon.
Got it. Okay.
So like it's just them thinking ahead to just it's a great plot. it's a great plot for them to be able to take advantage of the situation without any fault being directed at them.
Okay, I get that. Yeah, I just again, I really like the buildup and everything. It starts getting messy. Like they set up a lot of cool stuff. Like for instance, like without contact, with Earth, like they were saying like something about we don't get the kind of what causes them to go into free fall within like a day or so.
I don't know, but
It
it
was like a
seemed like they
power thing, right?
yeah, it seemed like they were losing gravity
Yeah,
and then they were just basically coming down. So they needed a booster. So then,
yeah,
which would kind of keep them in, where they
yeah.
were in orbit.
And if they didn't get it, they were going to essentially free fall back
Yeah.
down to Earth, probably.
Yeah.
Which I mean, I was kind of like, I kind of want to see that.
Yeah.
Because I was like, at the end of the day, like once I saw how engulfed the Earth was, I was like, oh, this is gonna have a happy ending. Like
Yeah.
we're looking at a really intense kind of like life with Jake Gyllenhaal kind of ending without the alien. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Where it's like people are gonna get fucked up. Some people are gonna probably get lost in space, what have you. And I think for me, when the third act really started falling apart, is you think that Christmas Santa got knocked off and he's just floating to his death in space, right?
Mm.
Veronica, she loses her mind when she finds out that the Russians actually follow through on their orders from their home country and shit. Because of course they're loyalists and stuff.
Yeah.
And that causes a whole like back and forth and coup. Veronica gets knocked in the head by Gordon,
Christian.
but Christian, she's fucked up, she's dead. Then he gets drunk on vodka because initially you think that Veronica and Alexi are in on it, like right on the plot, and then
Yeah.
like they have a moment where Alexi's kind of like, "Hey, Veronica," and she's like, I have a bottle of vodka under a table, like versus like being like, hey, like what are we gonna do about these Americans? So at the audience, you're
Yeah.
like, oh shit, Veronica maybe doesn't really know what's going on.
Yeah.
And then Alexei gets drunk on the vodka, of course, it's Russian vodka, and he sees on the like intercom that Gordon's still alive. And
Mm.
so I guess we're supposed to assume that he drunkenly helped with the arm get Gordon back towards the
Yeah.
ship.
He sends out the arm where Gordon can
Yeah.
grab onto it, and he basically brings him back to the hatch so he can get back in.
But then Gordon randomly shows up out of nowhere to stop Nikolai from trying to kill
Yeah,
Christian.
surprise, motherfucker.
And I was just like, what? And then he finds out that Veronica is killed. And then him and Nikolai get locked up in a chamber and have a hand-to-hand combat fight in space.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of like, wait, what?
Yeah, that part was weird. And then it's also like he chased him in there and da da da. He locks the door behind him. He's like, I'm gonna kill this motherfucker, which understandable.
Because he
To a
was the one that
degree,
controlled the arm, but he wasn't the one that killed your lady.
but he set the ball in motion, so
Yes.
technically he is the one that killed your lady.
Okay. That's
Because
I get what you're saying.
because if
He was the catalyst. He was the
yes,
catalyst for everything popping off. Yes.
I mean, because even if he's talking, if he talks to everybody, sees what happened. Christian had to kill her at that point. You know what I'm saying? Because she was grief stricken over the fact of his supposed or assumed death, and she was just like, I'm gonna torch all this shit. No, nothing's going. Nothing's going nowhere. He's like, I'm gonna kill you fuckers because you killed this dude for no reason, and
Yeah.
he wouldn't have done that to us, right? So she wanted revenge, and then Christian's just like, and he's right there. He's just like, oh, she gonna kill all of us,
Mm.
badang, So like, you can't necessarily fault him for that
Yeah.
because she was hysteric. But this is all Nikolai's fault.
Mhm. Yeah. You're right. You're right. I mean, she continues to escalate in this whole situation. And then Nikolai uses this drill and he essentially goes into Gordon's like gut with it. And then Gordon stabs Nikolai with a screwdriver in his
Yep.
neck, and
Yeah, in the
they're
back of his
both
neck.
dead. And I
Yeah.
was just like, blood should be kind of floating upward. There's like scenes where they already had that, but it should be like gushing in this room. This should be like the fucking red room at this
I mean,
point.
not necessarily though. because
Okay.
it's space. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So like the blood flow wouldn't necessarily be the same way because actually I don't know. Actually, you're right because I guess the pressure of your veins
Yeah.
and that being released, the blood would just I don't know. I've never been in space and bled, so I can't really
That's
say.
fair. That's fair.
But like my initial like I wasn't thrown off by that because I don't necessarily know because like yeah you had the kind of blood droplets floating
Yeah.
around, but here's the other thing because no never mind I was about to say because the lack of oxygen, but they are on a ship, so the oxygen the blood does get oxidized because
Mm.
technically the blood would be blue,
Ah. Yeah.
but the air would make it turn red once it comes out. So like, never mind that.
Yeah. I just there was also some I don't want to call them bloopers, but like gaffs in that scene too. Like there was like cuts where Chris Messina wasn't bloody, and then there would be scenes where like his white shirt was bloody. I'm like, there's a problem when you wear white clothing and you're having
Yeah,
attacks where you're supposed to have bloody wounds and stuff.
yeah,
Like I said, some of the graphics and things like that left a lot to be desired, and they had a budget of 13.8 million. I think they did a decent amount with the budget they had, but it definitely felt in the third act that things just got sloppy. That fight felt very forced.
yeah.
It didn't feel quite earned. It felt, and it just didn't look great. I don't think it looked as great as they were hoping it would.
Yeah,
This idea of
I
fighting
agree.
in
I agree.
zero gravity just looked kind of corny to me. And then they're both floating away. It's got this dramatic music, and I'm like, guys, you were doing so good. Like the intensity of this movie up to this point was so fucking good, and now it's just corny.
Yeah.
At least that was my personal opinion. And then uh, Tati did have a question. She was like, "How fast do people decompose in space?" Because between Veronica and the two captains, she was like, "What's gonna happen? What's happening with their bodies right now?" I was like, "I don't know."
Hmm?
Yeah, it was an interesting question. Lluvia says sounds like execs trying to push their ideas in a movie. Probably, probably. There's probably like they probably had a cut, and
Some
then
rewrites.
some people were like, yeah, you need to have like more action. You need to have like like a chase scene in space, and like it was probably a lot more like talky about philosophy and like trying to just ramp up the tension and dialogue because you
Yeah.
have a talented cast here versus like the weird, like I said, action moments that just didn't make any sense. Like, I don't know. It was just very frustrating to have the two captains then fight each other, representing their countries. They take each other out, so there's a draw. It's just very. I was like, okay, this feels very contrived. Um, and then let's get to the sandwich making scene because this is where I was like, John Gallagher Jr. I don't know what direction he had as Christian. I don't know what's going on with his character. But when Kira realizes that Christian's trying to leave in the pod by himself, then she goes where Christian and Alexi are both working their different stations and shit. At this point, Alexi's been doing some shady shit too. So she's like, I don't know who to trust, but also Christian starts
No,
saying,
Alexi hasn't done anything shady outside of replacing that wire. Other than that, he didn't do anything shady
yeah,
after that.
he's just like he has weird mannerisms and stuff. He's a little off, but
Yeah,
um,
he's a scientist.
yeah. But it was very so Christian's putting together like this sandwich because he's like, I realized I haven't eaten all day and like I don't feel
Mm.
great, blah blah blah. And then he basically hints that Kira's trying to steal the pot for herself, and like they can't trust her. And he's trying to like convince Alexi, I guess, to be like, hey, we gotta watch out for her. And then she knocks three times on the table, which I guess was something that was mentioned because Tati mentions that she's like, oh yeah, she's like Russians knock three times or something like that to like alert each other or something.
Mm.
And she's like, and I was like, okay, like that was a quick throwaway line, but interesting callback. But I just didn't, the way that John Gallagher Jr. played it was very much like a mustache twirling villain who was trying to like play both
Yeah,
sides. But I was like, but if your intention is just to get in the pod,
just get in the pod and go.
just get in the pod and go. Or this is where you can have a really interesting conversation, which is like, there's three of us left. Only two of us can fit in that pod. How do we decide who fits in that pod?
Yeah,
Or he's just like, I'm getting in that pod. Which one of you is worthy of coming with me?
yeah,
Because maybe he like did everything where he's like, I got the cards. I got like everything that's needed to get that pod started. So who the fuck's gonna convince me to come with me?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's way more interesting than this weird sniveling, like with the knife, and like Ariana's trying to like balance between being, approachable to him while also learning Alexi, and then they end up having another fucking fight, and they have to like choke him to death. Which I'm like, to your point, Justin, if his motivation really was, I want to get back to my daughters, then that's kind of fucking crazy.
Oh, that he would have just well,
Because the way that they killed him was very brutal in a way.
yeah, they had to kill him.
I know they had to kill him, but like it was just, I don't know. I didn't like where the third act went. It was just like, oh, now everyone's just dying, like getting. Yeah.
So hold on. So let me walk back. Uh, he was stealing research. He did steal Russian research. So that is exactly because I was reading it here. So he did steal the Russian research, and that's why he made the comment is like, when we get back, we'll be looked at heroes.
Mm.
So you do have that. He's gonna steal a pod. He's gonna have this Russian research. He's be like, yo, I'll be a hero for what I've done up here. So like this is a win-win for me, right?
Got it.
To your point, he should have definitely at that point just been like, okay, well, just jump in the pod and just get the fuck up out of here.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like, why is he in the kitchen making a sandwich?
That's
You
what
know
I'm
what I'm
saying. I
saying?
feel like something fell apart in the script. Something like weird happened, and I feel like it couldn't have been in the script because according to Yuvi's research, in December 2020, this screenplay was included on that year's blacklist, most like unproduced screenplays. That wouldn't have happened if the third act was this clunky and messy.
Mm.
But I bet you that whoever acquired this, which it looks like it was Screen Gems, they probably were like, we need some action scenes because
Yeah.
it just seeing the earth engulfed in flames is not enough.
Yeah.
Because it just felt unnatural, like them to be fighting each other in space like that. It didn't
Yeah.
feel earned. It just looked clunky. If I were the director, I would have been like, hey, I get it, but this isn't looking good. And it's actually, ironically, it slowed down the pacing of the movie in a weird way.
Yeah.
Because I was like rolling my eyes. I'm like, why did they do that? Like, I was really enjoying this until this fight.
Yeah.
Well, I was actually
Yeah.
really enjoying it until Christmas Santa showed up again because I'm like, I can see him holding on, but also for real,
Well, you know what? I had a feeling that he grabbed the
was still
part of the
alive.
ship. He was still alive. And something just told me that, like, oh, he out there. So he out there somewhere. And once Veronica died, I was just like, oh yeah, they're gonna bring him back because then they're gonna make her death in vain.
Mm,
You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? Which is so I first saw him coming back like to the point like I called it the moment that he got knocked off. I'm like, he ain't dead, he coming back.
Mm,
But the way in which he came back, I think that they should have had him come back on the ship and start asking some serious fucking questions, and then like the Russians ask, playing, what do you mean? Da 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 da. Then the other ones come out of hiding. Is just like, I think they knocked you off. So then now that's more of like a real life conflict, and he doesn't know who to trust.
mm,
You know what I'm saying? Because then maybe he comes back and he's just like, he can't find any of the Americans because they're hiding. He goes and looks in Christian's pod and sees a fucking and sees a suit in there and the research. He's like, oh, this nigga's trying to run the fuck out of here.
mm,
And now he doesn't trust them. He doesn't trust the Russians. The only person he can really trust is Kira because he knows she just got there. But he doesn't know what happened in the last 2 hours since he's been fucking hanging on to a goddamn to a solar
yeah.
panel. So like I think that would have made a more compelling thing where you just like, what's happening, and then you find out, and then like it's kind of unearthed one way or another that actually that's, I think that's a better position where you find out that Nikolai was kind of behind all this shit, where
Mm,
Kira, he's talking in Russian to Alexei, and Kira then basically comes is like, this dude just said this. He's like, what do you mean? He's just like, I speak perfect Russian.
Yeah.
And blah blah blah. And then she's the only one he trusts. And then that's when that if that
Yeah.
fight breaks off, it breaks off that way, and then they both end up getting killed. But not in some stupid space fight, but more of a fight that's you know, they die by happenstance,
Mm.
due to pressure or something, some other thing, which then leaves the last three.
I would have rather, like I said, like yeah, that's definitely a better angle. Or like, even going the more obvious route where, he keeps talking about his daughters the whole time, and then he's making the sandwich. Is like, I really can't wait to see my son. And they're like, I thought you had daughters. And then it's like, that's like the reveal, like, oh
Yeah,
shit. Like, do something like at least to earn that weird fight scene where they're choking him and working together. Cause then it's just like, all right, he's dead. And then Alexei and Kira get in the pod, and then they're falling towards the earth. And he's like, where are we going? And she's like, I don't know. Because they're essentially like, hey, when you land on US soil, like we're gonna help the American on board. But essentially they're like, we're probably gonna take in they're either gonna take in Alexei as a prisoner of war, or they're gonna kill him.
yeah,
That's what I got from that dispatch message. And so she turns it off. And so they're just free falling towards Earth. And I'm like, okay. And then it just ends.
yeah,
And that's what I was just like, talk about blowing your load early.
yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's tough. Like I agree with you. We could have wrapped this up in a completely different way. But like the end of it, like, yeah, it's just like, because on either side, Americans take him in, then it's like either she's a prisoner, or she's just defected to their side, or to Russia, or vice versa.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So that's just the way it is. But the other thing is, it's just like, I think because of the shared trauma of this, like, hey, we both had to kill this guy, to save our lives. The other one will vouch for the other person for their life. He's like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, they helped me, so like they're
Yeah.
good. They're with us. So I don't think that person is really in a lot of danger as far as becoming a prisoner of war or death or something like that. But what if you fall down in the zone where there's heavy fucking nuclear fucking winter?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, no matter what, it's not a good ending.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's not a happy ending, like I said.
yeah.
But I don't think neither is our rating for this movie. Justin, break down our rating system, baby.
Stop calling me baby, Brandon. So, guys, you know how we do this. We rate movies bags of popcorn, small, medium, large, and the XL40 exceptional. If a film doesn't deserve any popcorn, we throw it into the dog shit pile. We pile piles and piles of dog shit on top of it. So, Brandon, we sat down, we watched the 2023 film S
SSM.
SSI. No, I almost said SSA. It's an acronym me and my friends used to use. ISS. A film.
Not could be confused with IBS.
Okay. A film starring Ariana DeBose, Chris Messina, John Gallagher Jr., Masha Mashkova, Costa Ronan, and Hudolf Ashbeck. What say you, Brandon?
Yeah, so this gets a small. And this sucks because this was going like large. This is getting like this is good. First 2 hours were getting a large. I was like really into this movie. I'm like, man, why didn't no one see this movie? Like, how come it only grossed like $6 million, whatever, right?
Hmm.
Then we got to the third act. And I'm like, oh, because it has a shitty third act, it doesn't end well and a great buildup, and no one can recommend this movie because it falls apart.
Yeah.
And there's a few things that I could say that you could blame for that. Um, it could have been John Gallagher Jr.'s performance. It could have been the weird changes that they maybe made to the story, but incredibly strong first 2 acts, with a lot of tension, a lot of solid performances. Chris Center, like I said, has a really powerful moment in the second act that, like, for me, would be worth the price of admission if the third act wasn't so egregiously just thrown together.
Hmm.
So yeah, small, unfortunately. Justin, what about you?
So I'm gonna give this a medium. So I'm giving this a medium because the first end of this, I thought, like you said, was really good, really strong. Built some really great tension, uh, throughout it. And like you said, it did fall apart towards in the third act. But that tension that we had in the first portion of it, the first two portions of it, I thought was so compelling. I mean, I enjoyed the acting for the most part. The visual, just the story is, yeah, pretty crazy, but interesting. But yeah, the second act is, the final act of this is kind of, they just didn't stick the landing.
The
That's it.
final countdown.
So I'm gonna go with the medium.
Okay.
But because like I don't think it necessarily goes from a large all the way down to a small.
Yeah.
But I guess it also depends on how you interpret some of those things that were going on. But I could see how you went to the small though.
Got it. And we did get a quick Patriot thought. And folks, remember you sign up at Patreon at patreon.com/medium popcorn. You guarantee to have your thoughts and reviews of that upcoming film that we're talking about shared on that episode. So Sean the Terrible wrote, I was disappointed, just ended up being kind of dull. And I fully agree with that. Folks, as always, you can follow me at Frodo_Blackens on Instagram and Threads. You can follow the show at Medium P Podcast on all social media platforms, including TikTok. You can go to youtube.com/Medium P Podcast. Push that subscribe button to get alert about all future reviews and celebrity interviews that we have on that channel. And Justin, if you want to support the show financially, as well as follow you, what can they do, my brother?
Guys, you can follow me at J Brown Did It on the socials. But of course, you can follow this podcast, support this podcast at patreon.com/medium popcorn. We have $2, $5, $10, and $15 packages. So if you love this show, you want more, Patreon is the place to be. And then again, that is patreon.com/medium popcorn.
Yeah, Patreon is the place to be if you want to get with J and B. Look at me rhyming.
Look at you.
All right, folks. Thank you so much. And we'll be back next week. Leave us a 5-star review if the money's tight. We haven't had one in a while.
Indeed.
All right, y'all. Patreon.com/medium popcorn. Support the show. Lordy, please.
Baby.